There's a special kind of silence that fills your chest when your family treats your home like it's theirs. Not borrowed. Not shared. Owned. That silence showed up the morning my sister called me out of nowhere and said in the most casual voice on earth, "So, I'll be moving in next month. Just until I figure things out." No question. No pause. No conversation. A decision already made. I stared at the phone like maybe I heard wrong. "Moving in where?" I asked. "With you, obviously," she laughed. "You live alone. You have space. And Mom said you'd understand." There it was. The magic phrase. Mom said. My entire childhood came rushing back like an echo. I was always the one expected to adjust. Share my room. Give up plans. Rearrange myself so other people could stay comfortable. My sister, Claire, had always been the sun in our house. Bright. Loud. Dramatic. Everything revolved around her. And I learned to be quiet because quiet kids cause fewer problems. "What's going on?" I asked carefully. "Long story," she sighed. "Break up. Money's tight. Anyway, I'll bring my stuff next weekend. Oh, and I'll need the bigger bedroom because I have more clothes." More clothes. Of course. My hand tightened around the phone. The funny thing? My life had taken years to build. Years of crappy apartments, roommates who never washed dishes, working double shifts, saving dollar by dollar until I could finally afford something small but peaceful. My place wasn't much. But it was mine. My space. My silence. My breath. And suddenly, with one phone call, I was expected to hand it all over like it was a family storage unit. "Let me think," I said. She groaned. "What's there to think about? You're not married. You don't have kids. It's not like anyone else needs the space." That sentence landed sharper than she meant it to. Not married. No kids. Translation: your life is less important. My jaw tightened. "I'll call you back," I said. She huffed. "Fine. But don't make this weird. Family helps family." Then she hung up. I sat there staring at the wall, and something inside me whispered quietly, almost afraid of its own voice, "Maybe this time, family can help themselves." The minute the call ended, the old version of me tried to wake up. The one who apologized first. The one who made room. The one who swallowed discomfort like it was medicine. I almost texted her, "Of course. Whatever you need." Almost. Instead, I made tea and sat at my tiny kitchen table, letting the steam hit my face while my brain replayed every memory that sounded exactly like this. When Claire was 12, she wanted my desk. My parents said, "You don't really use it anyway." When she wanted to switch bedrooms because mine had better light, they told me, "You'll adapt. You're good at adapting." When she totaled her car, Mom cried like a funeral was happening while Dad emptied half their savings to fix it. When I asked for help with textbooks one semester, they said, "College is your choice. Be responsible." It wasn't hatred. It wasn't cruelty. It was something quieter, favoritism wrapped in logic. And I spent years convincing myself I was imagining it. But as I sat there sipping lukewarm tea, I realized something dangerous and honest. I had built this life specifically so I wouldn't have to live like that anymore. I had boundaries now. Rent I paid myself. Locks that turned because I turned them. Peace I earned. And somehow they all still believed my independence made me available. She said Mom told her. I murmured out loud, more to the kettle than to myself. So I called Mom. She answered on speaker, like always, like her hands were always too busy to hold the phone. "Hi, sweetheart," she sang. "Did Claire call you?" "She did," I said. "She said she's moving in." "Oh, good," Mom said with relief. "I knew you'd understand." I closed my eyes. "Mom, why didn't you ask me first?" There was a pause. Then that gentle, irritated tone she uses when she thinks I'm being difficult. Because you're reasonable. You've always been. Your sister is fragile right now. She needs stability. A familiar script. Claire is fragile. Claire needs. Claire first. And what do I need? I asked quietly. Another pause. She didn't like that question. Honey, we all need things. But you'll be fine. You always are. That sentence, that curse, wrapped itself around every memory of mine. You'll be fine. Translation: handle it. Absorb it. Make space. Don't complain. Mom, I pay rent. I work long hours. This place isn't a spare room. It's my home. And your sister is your family, she replied, sharper now. We help each other in this family. I almost laughed. 'Cause that had never been true. We help Claire. Everyone else survives. I haven't said yes, I repeated slowly. Silence stretched. Then Mom sighed dramatically. Don't make this ugly. She'll only be there until she gets back on her feet. Stop overthinking. I felt something shift inside me, a small, steady refusal. I'm not saying yes yet, I said. We'll talk later. Mom hung up without saying goodbye. That used to break my heart. Now it just confirmed something. I had finally stopped being predictable. And apparently that was the real problem. 2 days passed. No call. No apology. No conversation. Just silence, which in my family was never neutral. Silence meant, think about what you did. Silence meant, feel guilty. Silence meant, eventually you'll cave. I didn't. I went to work, came home, cooked dinner, answered emails, watered my plants, existed. And for the first time in a long time, I noticed how peaceful my life actually was when nobody else was rearranging it. On the third afternoon, the peace shattered. I came home from work and saw a car in my parking spot. Trunk open. Boxes everywhere. Clothes spilling out of bags like someone had shaken a closet and just dragged the mess over. Claire was sitting on the curb, scrolling her phone. Hey, she called brightly, like this was a reunion and not an invasion. Can you grab the other side of this box? I didn't move. Claire, I said slowly, what are you doing here? She blinked, confused. Moving in. Mom said you knew. That sentence landed like a rock. Not, Mom said she asked. Not, Mom said she checked. The Mom said you knew. A decision disguised as communication. I didn't agree, I said. Her smile faltered. Wait, what? She laughed a little like I'd made a bad joke. Come on. Don't be weird. Help me with this mattress. There it was again, the assumption that my boundaries were flexible furniture. Something inside my chest tightened. No, I said. Calm. Clear. Final. She stared like I had suddenly started speaking another language. No, she repeated. What do you mean no? I mean you're not moving in here, I replied. We haven't talked. We haven't set rules. You didn't even ask me. Her face flushed. I didn't think I had to, she snapped. You're my sister. Family helps. I almost flinched at the familiarity of the script. Family helps. Except when it was me. Except when I needed help. Except when I was drowning quietly while everyone complimented me on how strong I was. Helping isn't the same as being taken for granted, I said. She rolled her eyes. God, you sound like one of those self-love podcasts. It's just temporary. Stop making it dramatic. A younger version of me would have caved right there. Would have apologized. Would have convinced herself she was selfish. But I had lived enough life outside that house to finally recognize the difference between kindness and self-erasure. Did you sign a lease with someone? I asked. She shrugged. I kind of told my landlord I was leaving. They already found someone else. So you burned your bridge before asking me, I said. She shifted, defensive. Because Mom said it was fine. There it was. Not really my sister's decision. A pattern passed down. Okay, I said softly. Then maybe Mom should find you a place. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Wow, she whispered. You've really changed. I nodded. I hope so. Before she could answer, a car pulled in behind mine, a gray sedan I recognized immediately. My tenant, Marcus, the man who had signed a legal contract to rent the spare unit in my duplex. The unit Claire apparently believed was hers. He stepped out, friendly as always, carrying groceries. Hey, he said, giving a small wave. Parking was tight. Everything okay? Claire's eyes widened. She looked from him to me, then back to the building, finally realizing what she hadn't bothered to ask. Wait, she said. Who is that? I met her gaze. Teddy. That's the person who lives here. And for the first time, the situation wasn't confusing, or cruel, or complicated. It was simply honest. My life had moved forward, and I wasn't going back to make space where there wasn't any. Marcus looked between us, sensing tension the way dogs sense storms. He shifted the groceries in his arms. Should I come back later? He asked gently. No, you're fine, I said. You live here? The words landed harder than I expected. They anchored something inside me. You live here. You pay. You respect the space. You asked. Claire crossed her arms. So let me get this straight, she said, her tone turning sharp. You rent to strangers, but not to your own family. There it was, the guilt hook. Sharpened over years. Dipped in emotional varnish. I took a breath. He's not a stranger, I replied. He's a tenant. We have an agreement. And we talked. And he planned. And he didn't show up with boxes uninvited. Marcus lifted a hand awkwardly. I can put these inside and disappear. I don't want to be in the middle. You're not, I said. You're fine. He nodded and headed toward the steps. Claire watched him go, jaw tight, like the building itself had betrayed her. So where am I supposed to go? She demanded. Question was simple. The weight behind it wasn't. My entire childhood had trained me to hear that sentence as a command. Fix this. Reshape your life. Make room. I felt the instinct rise, the reflex to widen myself until there was nothing left of me. Then I remembered the exhaustion, the resentment, the nights where I cried quietly so no one would accuse me of being dramatic. That's not a question for me, I said. That's a question for you and the people who told you this was guaranteed. You mean Mom? She snapped. Say it. You mean Mom? I didn't deny it. Yeah, I said. I mean Mom. Silence stretched between us. Hot. Uncomfortable. Real. She paced, kicking at a loose pebble. She said you've got plenty of space and that you owe the family after everything they did for you. My stomach tightened. The debt speech. The invisible ledger where my existence was apparently itemized. I could almost hear my mother's voice in Claire's throat. We raised you. We fed you. We clothed you. Like love was a bill I'd failed to pay. I don't owe my home, I said quietly. I don't know my peace. I don't know my autonomy. Claire scoffed. Big words. Necessary ones, I answered. Marcus reappeared, slipping his keys into his pocket. Hey, he said to Claire, polite but firm. I'm sorry you're having a rough day, but this is definitely not my place. Literally. He gave me a supportive nod and disappeared inside. The door clicked. Final. Claire's shoulders sagged. For the first time since I pulled up, she didn't look angry. She looked scared. I didn't think this through, she admitted, voice small. I just assumed there would always be room for me somewhere. That sentence cracked something in me, not out of guilt but recognition. 'Cause I had lived my life assuming the opposite. That there would never be room. That I would always be the one squeezing myself into corners. I get it, I said gently. But assuming costs people. And this time it costs me. She rubbed her forehead. So what do I do? I swallowed. There it was again, the fork in the road. Fix it like always. Or finally let the responsibility rest where it belonged. You call Mom, I said, and you tell her the plan needs to change. Her eyes widened like I'd suggested skydiving without a parachute. She'll flip? Probably, I said. But flipping isn't fatal. She stared at the pavement, processing. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. Car drove by with bass rattling the windows. The world kept moving, indifferent to our family politics. Will you stay while I call? She asked. Not as a demand. Not as manipulation. Just afraid. I nodded. Yeah, I'll stay. She dialed. Put the phone on speaker. And as it rang, I braced myself, not for battle like before, but for something harder. Holding the line without hardening my heart. My mother answered on the fourth ring, bright and distracted. Sweetie, did you get there? Is she helping you unload? Claire looked at me. I nodded once. Tell the truth. No, she said. She isn't. Because I'm not moving in. There was silence on the line. Not the confused kind. Calculating kind. I could almost hear the gears turning in my mother's head as she rearranged the universe into a version where she was still right. What do you mean you're not moving in? She said finally, her tone sugar-coated and sharp at the same time. Of course you are. That's the plan. Claire's fingers trembled slightly. No, she said. That was your plan. Not mine. And definitely not hers. She glanced at me. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with something like relief. My mother let out a laugh that didn't sound like laughter. Oh, for heaven's sake. She's being dramatic again, isn't she? Put her on. Let me talk to her. Claire looked at me apologetically. I shook my head. Tell her, I mouthed. Your life. Your words. Claire took a breath. Mom, listen. She has a tenant. A paying tenant. A lease. She did things the adult way. And we're family, my mother cut in. Family overrides paperwork. Always has. That line, I'd heard it my entire life. Family overrides boundaries. Family overrides privacy. Family overrides your no. I felt something inside me harden. Not cold. Clear. Claire swallowed. Not this time, she said. I can't just show up and kick someone out because you said so. Why not? Mom snapped. He's a stranger. She owes us. Claire blinked. Owes you what? Another pause. My mother's tone shifted, softer, manipulative, the gentle squeeze before the knife. We raised her. We sacrificed. We've always planned around her. It's time she plans around us. I closed my eyes. There it was. The invisible bill again. Claire surprised both of us. You did the same thing with me, she said quietly. You told me what was happening and expected me to adjust. But I'm not a suitcase you move from house to house. And neither is she. The air felt charged, like a storm that hadn't broken yet. Mom scoffed. Wow. So now you're both ungrateful. I stepped closer so Claire could hear my voice if she needed grounding. She didn't. No, she said, steadier now. We're just adults. and adults get to decide where they live. Mom went silent again. Then the guilt bombs started to fall. I guess everything we did for you meant nothing. That's not what I said. Your father is going to be devastated. He'll survive, Mom. We were counting on this. You were counting on me, Claire corrected, voice gentle but firm. You never asked. You assumed. On the other end, my mother's voice hardened into something brittle. Fine. If you don't want to be here, then don't come asking for help later. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. Help that came with strings so tight they turned into chains. Claire's lips trembled. For a second I thought she'd fold. Apologize. Backtrack. Fall back into the script. Instead, she straightened her shoulders. Okay, she said softly. I won't. My mother inhaled sharply, offended by the boundary itself. Well, good luck then, she said, and hung up. Just like that. No goodbye. No I love you. Just a slammed emotional door. We stood there on the cracked sidewalk, listening to the emptiness after the call cut off. A breeze moved through the trees, rattling leaves like applause that didn't belong to anyone. Claire let out a shaky laugh and then covered her mouth, like she wasn't sure if she was laughing or crying. Wow, she whispered. That escalated. Yeah, I said softly. They usually do when control slips. She dropped onto the porch step, burying her face in her hands. I feel like a terrible daughter. I sat beside her. You feel like a new one. She peeked at me through her fingers. Does it ever stop feeling like you're betraying them? I thought about all the nights I lay awake replaying conversations, wondering if I'd been too harsh simply because I'd said no. Eventually, I said, it starts feeling less like betrayal and more like breathing. She nodded slowly, absorbing that. We sat there for a while, not talking, just existing. Two daughters on the edge of an old pattern, staring at the life beyond it. Finally, Claire sighed. Okay, she said. Next crisis. Where do I go? I smiled faintly. That's the question adults ask. And adults solve. With options. Not assumptions. We pulled out our phones. Looked at short-term rentals, roommates, temporary stays, co-workers with spare rooms. Real solutions. Not fantasy ones. Not ones built on my spine. And as we planned, I realized something I had never felt before around my family. My house felt like mine. Not a resource. Not a fallback plan. Not a vault they could break into. A boundary. With walls. With doors. With locks that I controlled. And I understood, maybe for the first time, that keeping space for myself wasn't selfish. It was survival. And maybe, finally, it was starting to be normal. The next 48 hours felt like someone took our family dynamic, flipped it upside down, and shook it until all the loose pieces fell out. Claire stayed at a cheap motel the first night, the kind with buzzing lights and carpets that had seen too many stories. She texted me at midnight. I feel weirdly free. Also, the air conditioner sounds like it's swallowing rocks. I smiled at the screen longer than I expected. Freedom rarely looks glamorous at the beginning. It usually looks like an unfamiliar bed and a receipt you hope was worth it. The following morning, my phone started ringing. Not Claire. Not Dad. Mom. Over and over. I didn't answer. Not because I was trying to punish her, but because I knew exactly what would happen if I picked up too soon. I'd get sucked back into the orbit, into explanations, into defending boundaries that didn't require debate. By noon, the voicemail box was full. Call me back. We need to talk. Your sister is making a mess out of everything. I don't appreciate being made out to be the villain. Not once. Are you okay? Not once. I might have pushed too hard. Not once. I'm sorry. That afternoon, I watered the plants, paid bills, wiped the counter, simple, boring domestic things. but they felt different, grounded, like the house was exhaling with me. Marcus knocked gently on the kitchen doorway. "Hey," he said. "We good?" I nodded. "We're good." He hesitated. "I heard some of it through the door the other day. I just want to say your boundaries are solid. My mom would have set me on fire if I tried anything like that growing up." I laughed. "Mine still might." He grinned. "Then you're brave." 3 left, I stood in the quiet and let those words soak in. Brave. I'd never applied that word to myself when it came to my family. Stubborn, maybe. Difficult, according to them. But not brave. That night, Claire came over with takeout containers stacked high like architectural models of rice and noodles. She dropped them on the table and collapsed into a chair. "The motel smells like sadness and bleach," she said. "Eat." We ate quietly for a while. The normal kind of quiet. Comfortable kind. Halfway through her dumplings, she said, "Dad called." My shoulders tensed before I could stop them. "And he asked why I was making things hard for your mother." But of course he did. Not "what happened?" Not "how are you holding up?" Just a redistribution of blame. "I told him I wasn't making things hard," she continued. "I was stopping them from being easy at my expense." I looked up. "And what did he say?" "He sighed," she said. "That disappointed, heavy sigh he does. Then he said, 'Your sister has filled your head with ideas.'" I snorted. "Yeah, the idea that we're humans." She smiled. "I told him these were my ideas. My life. My choices. And that I wasn't moving in with you. And he said, 'Well, don't expect us to bail you out later.'" There it was again. Conditional love wrapped up in financial warnings. "How did that feel?" I asked. Claire poked at her food. "Like someone turned off a faucet I didn't realize had been dripping for years. Quiet. Weirdly peaceful. Sad. But honest." I nodded. "Honest hurts less in the long run." She leaned back in the chair, eyes on the ceiling. "When did you start doing this?" "What?" "Stopping the faucet." I thought about it. There wasn't one big day. No grand cinematic moment. Just a series of small realizations that stacked up until they formed a wall. "When I realized every time I rescued them, I abandoned myself," I said. "And that they never noticed the cost because I was the one paying it quietly." She hummed. "I've been paying quietly too." "Yeah," I said softly. "We've both been financing the fantasy." Her phone buzzed. Mom again. She stared at it. Didn't move to answer. "She wants to come by," Claire said. "She thinks if she talks to you in person, you'll come to your senses." My chest tightened, old reflexes waking up. The urge to brace. To defend. To prepare arguments. Instead, I inhaled slowly. "No," I said. "She's not coming here." Claire blinked. "You're sure?" "I'm sure," I replied. "If she wants to talk, we can meet in a neutral place. Not my kitchen. Not my living room. Not my home." Saying it felt like bolting a door, not in cruelty but in protection. Claire nodded slowly. "Okay. I'll tell her." She texted. The dots appeared immediately. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Then the message came through. If she won't even open her door to her own mother, then I guess I know where we stand. I closed my eyes. The drama. The martyrdom. The rewriting of reality into a script where boundaries equal betrayal and consequences equal cruelty. "What are you going to say?" Claire asked quietly. I opened my eyes and smiled faintly. "Nothing." Her eyebrows rose. "Nothing. Nothing," I repeated. Because that message doesn't ask a question. And it doesn't deserve a defense. It's meant to hook. I'm not biting. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was steady, like an anchor settling. Later, after Claire left, I walked through each room. Not to check anything, just to feel it. My couch, my books, my lamp casting soft light, my life. And for the first time, I realized something huge. I wasn't the backup plan anymore. Not the spare bed. Not the emergency solution. Not the quiet, reliable safety net. I was a person with a front door that didn't swing open on command. And that, more than any victory, felt like the beginning of a different story. 2 days later, the conversation I had been avoiding finally cornered me, not in my house, but in the grocery store of all places. I was standing in the produce aisle, comparing prices on tomatoes like an average, boring adult when I heard it. "So, you're too busy to talk to your mother now." Her voice arrived before she did. Familiar, tight, layered with offense. I turned slowly. There she was. Cart, purse, the same expression she wore whenever she talked to a waiter who got her order slightly wrong. I felt the automatic response rise in my throat, the instinct to soften, to smile, to minimize, to fix. I swallowed it. "Hi," I said evenly. "I wasn't expecting to see you here." She looked me up and down like I was a situation she needed to manage. "Well, life is full of disappointments," she replied. Apparently. I could feel a tension in my shoulders, the kind that wraps around your spine like wire. "We can talk," I said, keeping my voice calm. "But I'm not arguing in front of the cantaloupes." Her lips twitched. Always so dramatic. Still, she pushed her cart aside and moved closer. "Your sister tells me you refuse to let her stay with you," she said. "After everything we've done for you. After all the sacrifices." There it was. The ledger, placed on the counter like a receipt I had to sign. "I didn't refuse to help," I said. "I refused to give away my home without discussion." "That's different," she scoffed. "You have 2 bedrooms. I have 1 bedroom and 1 rented space," I corrected. "A legal agreement. Commitment. A boundary." She waved a dismissive hand. "Paperwork. You're acting like this tenant is family." I met her eyes. "I'm acting like I'm my own family." That landed. I saw it, the flicker. The recognition that something had shifted and she was no longer talking to the child version of me. Her jaw tightened. "You never used to be like this." "Yes," I said gently. "I did. I just didn't say it out loud." She leaned in. "You embarrassed me. Do you understand that? When Claire called, I had to explain why my own daughter wouldn't open her door. People think we raised you wrong." That sentence sliced through me, not because it hurt, but because it revealed everything. Her fear wasn't about safety or fairness or love. It was about image, narrative, control. "I'm not responsible for your reputation," I said quietly. "I'm responsible for my life." Her eyes narrowed. "So that's it? You're done with us?" Old me would have panicked at that. Rushed in. Reassured. Denied. New me took a breath. "No," I said. "I'm done being the emergency exit you use when your plans don't work." People walked around us, pushing carts, grabbing oranges, living ordinary Thursday lives while my childhood rewired itself next to the potatoes. She crossed her arms. "We needed help." "You assumed I'd provide it," I replied. "Without asking. Without considering how it would impact me. That's not help. That's entitlement." Her mouth opened, ready with a counterargument, then closed again. For a moment, she looked lost. And for the first time, I didn't rush to fill the silence. "We would have done the same for you," she said finally. I tilted my head. "Would you?" She blinked. "Of course. Like when I needed money for the deposit on my first apartment?" I asked. Or when my car broke down and you suggested I figure it out? I let the memories line up like witnesses. Like when you saved for vacation instead of helping with my medical bill? Like when Claire got priority again and again because she needed you more? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Truth sat between us, heavy and undeniable. She shifted tactics. "You've changed," she murmured. "You sound cold." I shook my head. "No. I'm warm to myself now. That probably feels cold to people who were used to me burning out for them." We stood there, surrounded by fluorescent light and the smell of cilantro, while the dynamic we'd rehearsed for decades cracked. She sighed, the long, theatrical kind meant to summon guilt. "Well," she said, "don't say I didn't try." She reached for her cart. I didn't chase her. I didn't explain. I didn't apologize. Instead, I said, "If you want to talk, really talk, we can schedule something." Neutral place. No surprise attacks. No guilt speeches. Just conversation. She paused. Looked back at me. I could see the battle in her eyes, control versus connection. Habit versus change. Love versus ego. "I'll think about it," she said finally. Then she walked away. Not storming. Not slamming. Just leaving. I stood there for a moment, feeling my pulse slow. No explosion. No collapse. Just clarity. A little while later, as I loaded groceries into my trunk, Claire called. "She ran into you, didn't she?" "Grocery store ambush," I said. "Classic move." She groaned. "You okay?" I looked at the sky, gray, ordinary, unremarkable, and somehow beautiful. "Yeah," I said. "For the first time in a long time, I actually am." And somewhere deep inside, something settled. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just the quiet realization that my life, my choices, finally belonged to me. The strange thing about drawing boundaries is that nothing explodes right away. There's no thunder. No dramatic movie music. Instead, life keeps going. The kettle boils, emails arrive, the cat knocks something off the table, and yet inside you, entire continents shift. Over the next week, the silence from my family felt different. Not threatening. Not punishing. Just revealing. Before, silence meant I'd done something wrong. Now, it simply meant they didn't know how to operate in a world where I wasn't the default solution. On Wednesday, I came home from work and found a folded piece of paper shoved halfway under my apartment door. My heart kicked. Old instincts. Old fear. I picked it up slowly. It was my sister's handwriting. Not dramatic. Not long. Just, "Can we talk?" Properly. No assumptions. No plans made for you. See. I sat on the couch holding that note like it was heavier than paper. 'Cause it was. It was admission. It was hesitation. It was the first time in years she'd approached me without entitlement baked into the ask. I texted her. We set a time. Coffee shop. Public. Neutral ground. The day came faster than I expected. I arrived early, which is ironic considering she was the one who always accused me of being too intense about punctuality. I sat near the window, hands wrapped around a warm cup, watching people outside push strollers, walk dogs, live their lives. Then she walked in. Same familiar face. Slightly tired eyes. She spotted me and lifted a hand. No smile. Not yet. She sat down. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, instead of launching into excuses or demands, she did something I wasn't prepared for. She exhaled. "Okay," she said. "Say it. Whatever you've been wanting to say. I won't interrupt." That alone almost made me cry. Not because it solved anything, but because it acknowledged something, that my voice existed. That my experiences weren't just supporting details in someone else's story. I took my time. Not out of cruelty. Out of care. Because this wasn't about punishing her. This was about finally telling the truth without minimizing it. I told her about being the reliable one. The fixer. The backup plan. The invisible backbone. The one who carried the guilt while everyone else carried their vacations and plans and expectations. I talked about birthdays forgotten. Graduations overshadowed. Emergencies handled alone because you'll figure it out. I talked about the exhaustion. The resentment. The quiet heartbreak of realizing that the family narrative always placed me last, while calling me strong like it was a compliment. She didn't interrupt. Didn't roll her eyes. Didn't deflect. She just listened, occasionally swallowing hard, fingers curled around her mug like she needed to hold on to something. When I finished, the air felt strangely clean. She nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "Here's mine." And then she did something I never expected. She told me the truth from her side. She admitted that Mom had always made her feel like the center of the universe, but in a suffocating way. Like a fragile project. Like a responsibility. Like if she failed, Mom would break. She said she learned early that if she cried, things moved. She needed, people scrambled. She became addicted to that dynamic, not because she wanted to hurt me, but because she didn't know another way to exist in our family. "They taught me I matter by making you carry things," she said quietly. And I let them. Because it was easier. The honesty stung, but in a healing way, like disinfectant. Not pretty. But necessary. "I'm not asking you to fix it," she added. "I'm asking to learn how to be your sister without stepping on your neck." I laughed, a soft, broken sound. "Good start," I said. We talked for hours. Not perfectly. Not neatly. There were moments we misunderstood each other. Moments we slipped into old rhythm and had to pull back. But by the time the sun dipped and the coffee shop turned from bright to cozy, something had shifted. Not magically. Not completely. But enough. As we stood to leave, she hugged me, not clingy, not desperate, just a steady, grateful hug. "Thank you for not disappearing without explaining," she whispered. "Thank you for not dismissing my pain this time," I whispered back. Inside, the air felt cool. Real. Honest. I walked home slower than usual, not because I was tired, but because I was finally learning how to move through the world without sprinting to fix everything. That night, I sat on my couch, lights low, and thought about something my therapist once said: "When you stop over-functioning, dysfunctional systems shake." Maybe that's what was happening now. Not punishment. Not cruelty. Adjustment. Realignment. I didn't know where things with my family would go next. But for the first time, the uncertainty didn't terrify me. Felt like space. Like possibility. Like breathing room I hadn't realized I'd been starving for. And quietly, gently, I allowed myself to feel it. A few days passed, and life didn't immediately transform into some tidy reconciliation arc. There were no dramatic apologies from my parents. No emotional speeches. No movie soundtrack moment. Instead, there were subtle shifts. Small tremors in the ground beneath the roles we had all memorized. On Saturday morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. Not an essay. Not an order. Not an assumption. Just, "Can we talk today? I want to understand." I stared at the screen for a long time. Because if you've spent your whole life being dismissed, the idea that someone suddenly wants to understand doesn't feel comforting at first. Feels suspicious. Like a trap disguised as compassion. Till I agreed, with conditions. Call. Not in person. No speakerphone. No surprises. 4 p.m. the phone rang. Her voice sounded softer than usual. Less hurried. Less performative. "Hi," she said simply. "Hi," I answered. Silence lingered. Not awkward. Just careful. Like both of us were learning how to walk again. Your sister said you two talked, she began. She said, I might have made things harder on you than I realized. I didn't rush to soothe her. Didn't say it's fine. Those reflexes had retired. Yeah, I said. You did. She inhaled sharply, like the truth was cold water hitting her face. I always thought I was doing what mothers do, she said slowly. Protect the child who seems fragile. Push the one who seems capable. I know, I replied. But you forgot I was also a child. There was a long pause. I could almost hear gears moving. Memories rearranging. Narratives cracking. When Claire struggled, she said quietly, I panicked. When you struggled, I assumed you'd figure it out. I told myself I was respecting your independence. Maybe I was just avoiding responsibility. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just listened. 'Cause hearing someone finally name the truth, without excuses, without spin, is its own kind of shock. When we talked about Claire moving in, she continued, I realized something ugly. I had already decided. Before even calling you, I assumed your life existed as a spare room for other people's crises. She exhaled shakily. That wasn't fair. My throat tightened. But not from pain. From relief. Not complete relief. Not total healing. But the kind that feels like finally loosening a tight shoelaces that have been cutting into your skin for years. Thank you for saying that, I said. But understanding it doesn't automatically reset everything. I still need boundaries. I know, she said. And I'm not calling to push. I'm calling because I don't want to lose you to my own blind spots. I leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, her words didn't feel manipulative. They sounded honest. Imperfect. But honest. She swallowed. Your father doesn't fully get it yet, she added with a sad laugh. He thinks you're going through a phase of independence. But I see something else. I see a woman who got tired of being the solution. I smiled faintly. Yeah, that's accurate. So, she said carefully, if Claire asks again, what should I say? Question stunned me. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because she was finally asking it. You say no for me, I replied. You tell her my home is not a family storage unit. You tell her you love her and that you and Dad will help her figure something else out without handing her my life. Another pause. Then softly, okay. Just that. No groaning. No guilt-tripping. No after all we've done. Just acceptance. Didn't erase years of imbalance. Didn't rewrite history. But it was a beginning. After we hung up, I sat quietly for a long time. Not triumphant. Not vindictive. Just peaceful. Like a storm had passed and left behind a strange, tender silence. I made dinner. I watered my plants. I answered some emails. Normal things. But they felt different now. Lighter. Less clenched. Later that evening, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city glowed in that hazy amber way that makes even ordinary rooftops look meaningful. I thought about my childhood bedroom. The nights I lay awake listening to my parents whisper about Claire's problems while I silently Googled scholarships, jobs, apartments, always preparing to take care of myself because nobody else had the bandwidth. I thought about how easy it is for families to lose sight of the kid who isn't screaming. Quiet ones. Capable ones. The ones who learn early that love must be earned through performance. And for the first time, I felt something new toward that younger version of me. Not pity. Not anger. Just deep, sincere compassion. She deserved better. And the adult me was finally stepping in to give it to her. My phone buzzed again. A message from Claire. Mom told me, thank you for standing your ground. I'm proud of you. I laughed softly. 'Cause life has a funny way of looping back. The sister who once expected my space as her right now respected it as my boundary. Growth looks weird sometimes. Messy. Uneven. But real. I went back inside, closed the balcony door, and locked it. Not out of fear. Out of choice. Out of the simple, quiet acknowledgement that my home, my time, my peace finally belonged to me. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like safety. The next weekend, something unexpected happened. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just ordinary in a way that felt almost sacred. My parents came over. Not unannounced. Not barging in like they used to. Mom texted first. "If you're free, we'd like to visit. Only if it's okay." Those last 4 words did something to me. Only if it's okay. Permission. Respect. Acknowledgement that my home was not a revolving door. I took a breath. Checked in with myself. Not with guilt. Not with obligation. With honesty. I felt calm. Grounded. Ready. "Sure," I texted back. Sunday afternoon. 1 hour. No heavy topics unless we all agree. She replied with a thumbs up. Dad added, "We'll bring pastries." The old version of me would have scrubbed the entire house, rearranged furniture, rehearsed conversations. The new version wiped the counters, lit a candle, and let the house just be lived in. When the doorbell rang, my heart still skipped. Some patterns leave echoes, but it wasn't fear. Just awareness. I opened the door. They both stood there, slightly awkward, holding a bakery box like a peace offering. My mom's smile was smaller than usual. Not fake. Careful. My dad looked like someone had briefed him before a delicate diplomatic meeting. "Hi, sweetheart," Mom said softly. "Hi," I answered. "Come in." They stepped inside and did something they'd never done before. They paused. Looked around. Not with judgment. Not with commentary. Just noticing. "It looks beautiful," Mom said. "Like you." I blinked, surprised. Compliments weren't unusual from her. But this one didn't feel performative. Didn't feel like a setup for, "and that's why your sister should move in." Felt sincere. We sat at the table. Coffee. Pastries. Small talk at first. Work. Weather. The neighbor's loud dog. Then Dad cleared his throat. The sound of a man about to say something he practiced. "Your mother told me," he said, eyes on his cup, "about the conversation you had. About how we made you feel growing up." My chest tightened, not with dread, but with grief for all the years this talk never happened. "I didn't realize," he continued. "I thought pushing you meant I believed in you. I didn't see how it also meant abandoning you when you needed us." He looked up then, eyes suspiciously shiny. "I'm sorry." The words didn't come wrapped in excuses. They didn't arrive with a side of guilt. They just came. Simple. Late but real. My throat burned. I nodded. "Thank you." Mom took a breath. "We won't always get this right," she said. "But I want to try again. Differently. Without assuming your life is here to catch ours." I smiled, small but genuine. That's all I've ever wanted. They stayed for exactly 1 hour. No pushing. No tension. No emotional landmines disguised as conversation. Just presence. When they left, Mom hugged me, gently, not clinging, the kind of hug that asks permission instead of demanding closeness. Dad squeezed my shoulder. "We're proud of you," he said quietly. "Not because you're strong. Because you're honest." After the door closed, I leaned back against it and let out a slow breath. This wasn't perfection. This wasn't everything magically fixed. But it was movement. Honest, fragile, hopeful movement. Later that night, I sat on the couch and opened an old photo album I hadn't touched in years. There I was, birthdays, recitals, graduations, always a little off to the side, smiling just enough. I wanted to step into those photos and tell that girl, you don't have to earn your place. You don't have to disappear to be loved. And I realized something profound. The revenge I once fantasized about, the grand confrontation, the dramatic exit, was never really what I wanted. What I wanted was this: balance, respect, a seat at the table that didn't require shrinking. Boundaries didn't destroy my family. They revealed it. They challenged it. They allowed it to rebuild on something sturdier than guilt. And as I closed the album and turned off the light, I understood, maybe for the first time, that choosing myself wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of one where I finally mattered too. The weeks that followed felt like someone had carefully taken my life apart, cleaned the pieces, and put them back together in a slightly different order. Not new. Not unrecognizable. Just clearer. Work felt lighter. Meals tasted better. Even silence sounded different, less like loneliness and more like peace. But change, even healthy change, doesn't arrive without echoes. One evening, while I was finishing up emails at the kitchen table, I got a text from an unknown number. "Heard you're too good for your family now." No name. No context. But I recognized the cadence. Cousin. One of the ones who grew up swimming in the same family mythology. I stared at the message for a second, then felt something inside me settle. Old me would have written paragraphs back. Clarifying. Explaining. Defending. New me simply blocked the number and went back to work. 'Cause not every accusation deserves my energy. The next echo arrived at a family dinner a few weeks later. I went, by choice, because I wanted to see if the ground we were building was stable. The house smelled the same as always. Garlic. Lemon cleaner. A faint hint of candles saved for special occasions. Laughter hovered through the rooms. I walked in, hugged who I wanted to hug, avoided who drained me, and sat where I felt comfortable instead of where I was told. It was subtle but powerful. Halfway through the meal, an aunt leaned across the table with that conspiratorial whisper that always pretends to be concern. "We're all just worried you're becoming selfish." I took a sip of water. Set the glass down gently. "I am," I said, "in the way people get on airplanes. Mask first. Then help others." She blinked. Didn't know where to place that answer. Conversation drifted elsewhere. I didn't feel triumphant. Just steady. After dessert, Dad pulled me aside to the back porch. Night hung warm and quiet around us. "Your mother wants to invite you on a small trip," he said. "Just a weekend. No pressure. We want to spend time with you, not because we need something. Just because we like you." That sentence almost undid me. Like you. Not use you. Not lean on you. Like you. I agreed, with boundaries. Separate rooms. Clear schedule. No emotional interrogations disguised as bonding. They accepted. Felt easy. Simple. And underneath it all, I realized something critical. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I wasn't performing. I wasn't auditioning for love like it was a role I could lose. I was showing up as a whole person. And they were slowly, imperfectly, learning to meet me there. A few nights later, I sat on the floor of my living room, sorting through boxes I had avoided for years. Old journals. Receipts from my first apartment. Letters I wrote and never sent. I found one from college, addressed to my parents but never mailed. It said, "I'm drowning. Please see me." I read the words and didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the wound was finally healing. I whispered out loud like a promise to that younger me, "I see you now." The following morning, Claire stopped by on her way to work. She looked different too, lighter, grounded, less frantic. "I signed a lease," she said, grinning. "Tiny studio. Leaky sink. Best decision I've made." We celebrated with coffee and cheap pastries. She glanced around my apartment, then back at me. Thanks for not rescuing me, she said. I laughed. You're welcome. It struck me how upside down that sentence would have sounded a year ago. Now it felt like the truest thing in the world. 'Cause sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to let them build their life out of your bones. That night before bed, I opened my windows and let the city air drift in. Somewhere far off, someone was playing music. Somewhere, someone was arguing. Somewhere, someone was laughing. Life, big and ordinary and messy, went on. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a background character moving the scenery so everyone else could shine under better lighting. I felt central, present, whole. Boundaries hadn't made me harder. They'd made me warmer, because I finally had energy left to feel things without resentment. I crawled under the covers, turned off the light, and let sleep come. Not anxious. Not rehearsing. Not replaying every interaction, grading myself on how good I had been. Just resting in the quiet truth that I had finally stepped into my own life. And nothing, not guilt, not expectations, not old scripts, was strong enough to pull me back out again. A few months later, life had fallen into its new rhythm. Not perfect. Not magical. Just honest. And honesty has a way of quietly renovating everything it touches. One afternoon, I was cleaning out my email when I stumbled across an old folder labeled Family. Inside were hundreds of saved messages. Reminders. Guilt-flavored invitations. Subtle digs disguised as jokes. Quests framed as obligations. I scrolled through them slowly, like walking through a museum of a life I no longer lived. We're counting on you. Don't make this harder. You're the strong one. Your sister needs more than you. Family sacrifices. Sentence had once felt like scripture. Untouchable. Holy. Now they read like instructions for how to disappear. I selected the entire folder. My hand hovered above the delete key. For a second, the old fear flickered. What if letting go meant abandoning them? What if boundaries made me selfish? What if this was proof I didn't love them enough? Then another voice rose up, steadier. Love that requires erasing yourself isn't love. It's control dressed like loyalty. I pressed delete. The folder vanished. I didn't feel empty. I felt lighter. That evening, Mom called. Not to ask. Not to demand. Just to share. I tried a new recipe, she said, laughing. It was awful. Your father pretended it was good. We talked like people who chose each other, not like people trapped in a script. Claire joined the call halfway through. We joked. We teased. We took turns. Nobody talked over me. Nobody minimized me. Nobody acted like my role was caretaker, translator, fixer, hero. I was just a daughter. A sister. Myself. After we hung up, I sat on the couch and looked around my apartment. Plant by the window was finally thriving. The stack of unpaid emotional debts that once lived in my chest had evaporated. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet realization unfolded. The story I had been living wasn't about revenge at all. Revenge is loud. Sharp. Short. What happened instead was slower. Softer. Stronger. It was reclamation. Claiming my time. My voice. My place. Claiming the version of me that learned as a child to stay small so everyone else could feel big. A few weeks later, I visited my parents' house. Not because I had to, 'cause I wanted to see how it felt. The hallway looked the same. Pictures were still there. Childhood photos. Family vacations. Proud moments. But something subtle had changed. There on the wall was a new frame. A photo of me. Not at a graduation. Not achieving anything spectacular. Just sitting at my kitchen table, laughing. A normal moment. A real one. Your mom insisted on that one, Dad said gently. She said it's the first time she realized you looked free. My chest tightened in a different way. Not pain. Gratitude. We ate dinner. We talked. And when the evening was over, nobody asked me to stay longer. Nobody loaded their responsibilities into my arms disguised as love. At the door, Mom hugged me and whispered, "Thanks for teaching me." I smiled. "Thanks for learning." On the drive home, I realized something that made everything click into place. The day I stopped begging to be chosen, my life opened. The day I stopped auditioning for my family's approval, I finally became someone I approved of. And strangely, gently, that gave them permission to grow too. I parked, walked upstairs, unlocked my door, and stepped into my quiet space. My space. My rules. My peace. I set my keys down, poured a glass of water, and stood for a moment in the stillness. No drama. No storm. No cinematic ending. Just a steady, grounded truth. I am not the backup plan. I am not the emotional parent. I am not the convenient solution. I am not the kid who takes whatever is left. I am a whole person. With needs. With limits. With worth that doesn't fluctuate based on who needs saving. And if anyone, family or not, ever forgets that again, I now know what to do. Not explode. Not scream. Not beg. Simply step back. Close the door. Choose myself. 'Cause sometimes the greatest revenge isn't payback or punishment. Sometimes the greatest revenge is finally building a life where you never again have to ask permission to exist.